The social contract is the basic principle that individuals and governments have certain rights and responsibilities to one another. In a nutshell, people pay taxes, and the government gives us schools, roads, hospitals, and the fire department. That sounds like a fair deal, but when was the last time we updated the contract? When was the last time we asked fundamental questions about how our society is run and what changes we should make? Who goes to jail and why? What do we learn in school and why? What does the military do and why? We, or at least I, have a tendency to think about the topic or the scandal of the day and not the underlying issues that create them in the first place. Hopefully, through this conversation, we can attempt to answer some of those fundamental questions and redraw the social contract.
What was it like for you on 9/11? Like, do you remember that day?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So you were in Congo, right?
I was in Uganda at that time.
In Uganda. Okay.
Mm.
So what is it? What was the coverage or the perspective of 9/11 in Uganda as a 12 or 11-year-old or whatever?
So that was what 9/11. That was in
20 years ago.
2000. Yeah. Oh my god.
I know, bro. I know.
Jesus.
20 fucking years ago. Yep.
You know, I was thinking there's so many kids today that are growing up without ever having things like the TSA, like spying,
Right.
people being spied on. Like
Yeah.
there are people that are growing up not knowing that that was a normal thing.
When I was a kid, I used to be able to fly to the United States without a passport. Get on an airplane without a passport and go to another country without a passport. Bro,
Imagine.
It's a different world, man.
World. There's so many crazy.
People like it was different world, bro.
Anyways, I remember what it was like. I remember some of the coverage was there's a lot of sympathy because there is a lot of like a pro-America. Mm-hmm. Like people love America. They love the symbol of Americanism, right? Yes. And because, and again, when we talk about cultural imperialism, the United States has managed with Hollywood and many other things, being able to infiltrate a lot of different cultures. And the image of what people have of America, at least pre 9/11, was somewhat very positive. I think people had a very positive outlook on America because of what it just exported by culture-wise. And I think that sort of like gave the idea of a sympathy towards America. Because I remember when I used to create like toys, I always put like the American flag because it was the good guy, always the good guy. But then you had people who were Muslims in Uganda because there is a sizable Muslim population there, and some cheered. Some cheered because they saw like, okay, like this, here's the big bad lion that has been poked type of thing, or is bleeding in a way type of thing. Which in some circles I can understand, because I mean, I don't advocate for death, and I'll never advocate for any. It was a tragedy to lose that many people, but equally those people could turn around and say that the US has created tragedy in their communities, and no one ever says anything about them. No one memorializes their people. And so as a kid, I never really went down that thinking because I felt sympathy for families that lost loved ones for something they never absolutely knew nothing about. So there's a lot of sympathy, I would say, but there was, of course, some dissent by people who were just kind of like, well, somebody managed to sort of lay a hand on the big imperial superpower, then so be it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, definitely, like I've heard that argument before, like taste of your own medicine, etc., etc. But the reason why that argument doesn't work for me is like the people who died on 9/11 weren't the people responsible for American imperialism. You know what I mean? Like the flight attendant and the guy who worked at the hot dog stand and the accountant and the dentist, like all of the victims of 9/11 weren't the commanders or the deciders of U.S. foreign policy. You know what I mean? So it sort of loses legitimacy because it's such a misdirected target in terms of who your beef should be with and how you should have it. But anyways, we're here now. But the reason why I bring that up is that from the Canadian perspective, definitely much closer to home.
Mm.
Well over 20 Canadians died on 9/11. So so Canada was directly attacked and directly impacted by it. So that it wasn't even peripheral. And then, of course, I'm sure you remember all
Other
North
planes,
American
yeah.
air travel going to
Right.
Gander, Newfoundland
Right.
on September 11th. So you got a town of 4,000, 5,000 people quadrupling in size in one day.
Mm.
And and again, going back to romanticized pride about your country and nationalist
Yeah.
pride, that is, I would say that's one of the shining moments of Canada,
Mm.
where when the world was in a state of panic, because on 9/11 the entire planet was in a state of panic, and when all of North American air travel came to a standstill, it was Canada who stepped up, and it was one of our smallest communities in the most eastern part of the country who were there for thousands of people who they'd never met from all over the world. So as a Canadian, very prideful
Mm.
in terms of that. And then of course the 20, I want to say 25, 26 Canadians who died on 9/11, it was a direct like our nation has been attacked. We have been attacked. And so that, and then of course Canada's military was right alongside the American military in terms of the initial response, with Australia and England, et cetera, et cetera. But I bring this up to because, and I didn't even realize this was an option until I think like a year or two later. Do you know Chris Hayes on MSNBC?
Yes.
So he was talking in his podcast, and he was saying that, oh, there was a small group after 9/11 who opposed the US invasion of Afghanistan. And I was like, what? I thought it was universal support.
Universe. Yeah.
I personally, and it was so obvious. They're like, well, if bin Laden is in Afghanistan, like it wasn't even a debate on should we or shouldn't we. It was
Mm.
let's go get them. Like I don't, I
Mm.
personally, I just don't even remember someone asking the question, should we? And so I was like, oh, like tell me more. And essentially, and I think he was part of this group, but essentially it boiled down to asking the government of Afghanistan to turn him over. So sort of the way like when you're extraditing a drug lord, or when you're extraditing whoever, you're like, okay, the government has to surrender him to the embassy or to whoever, and then we'll put them on trial. And I was, and I, when I heard that, I literally started laughing. I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? On what planet is that?" I think I burst. I think if I was drinking something, I must have spit out my drink, because I was like, "Sorry, say that one more time." Like, we're gonna send a letter to the government of Afghanistan saying, "Please hand him over." And I was like, "Y'all must. I don't know what you're smoking. I don't know. Like that's never gonna happen." That is
Yeah.
never. And I laughed at it. But then like after the fact, I was like, oh yeah, wait, we could have done that. You know what I mean? Like, not
Mm-hmm.
to say that obviously the Taliban was very much in bed with Al Qaeda. And I understand that it's not that simple at all. But the notion that not going to war is the ridiculous, laughable idea, I think that says more about us than the
Yes.
ridiculousness of the idea.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and you're like, yeah, I guess so. And then when you think about Guantanamo Bay, like what's the logic for that? They're like, oh, like these are the worst of the worst. These are bad guys. These are killers. And you're like, well, wait a minute. The Timothy McVeigh, who blew up the Oklahoma City building, we put him in. We had a trial. We put him in jail. All these serial killers, we have a trial. We put them in jail. The 1993 World Trade Center bombing, the Atlanta Olympic bombing, Oklahoma City bombing. This isn't new.
Mm-hmm.
We've arrested mass killers before. We've had a trial and we put them in jail. So why do we have to throw them in this black hole in Guantanamo Bay and then not even have a trial? No, and it's just like, oh, because they're so deadly and they're so bad that we can't even have a trial. They're gonna blow up the trial. And it's just like, come on, like that's, and like it wasn't even until 4 or 5 years after where we were like, what the hell are we doing with this prison in Guantanamo Bay? And they're like, if they're guilty, like you say they are, if they're hardened killers, like you say they are, then the trial
Right.
should last 5 minutes.
Right.
There should be no problem. You know, you should have all the evidence in the world. And if this person is diehard Al Qaeda, they're probably going to admit to it on the stand. So what's the issue?
Yeah.
You know
Why
what I
don't
mean?
you want us to hear? Why don't you want us to hear their perspective? We have a legal system created exactly for such things. Why is it that you're trying to circumvent a very structure that you created that has checks and balances? Because that's and I think this is goes to the heart of this problem,
Mhm.
because all of these the ideas of like waterboarding, like torture, military like powers, like police militarization,
Mhm.
actually date their, especially for the United States, they have a root, a historical root in the war with the U.S. um the U.S. Spanish War, especially in the Philippines,
Mhm.
because a lot of the ideas of waterboarding, for example, came from the Philippines when the U.S., because the U.S. Spanish War was basically in the Philippines. The U.S. basically promised the Filipinos that, oh, we're going to get rid of the Spanish who had ruled over them for hundreds of years.
Okay.
And when they finally rooted out the Spanish out of the Philippines, the U.S. was like, ha, we're going to annex you. You're part of
Exactly.
America now.
Exactly.
So you traded one imperialist for another one. And then when, of course, the local Filipinos were like, no, wait, we didn't sign up for another like colonizer. So they started to have like an insurgency. So the U.S., of course, came in and tried to quash this like this people trying to protect their land and get back their own land and their freedom. And a lot of the things that the U.S. does did in other military adventures, they learned from what they did in the Philippines, torturing people, surveilling people. And every war that America has been in has been almost like a lesson for what they're going to do in other wars.
Yes.
But the problem with and this is my problem with militarization, and especially militarization to the way it has become to this day, where we're constantly going into wars where we have no end goal, we don't know who the enemy is. It's questionable, like and then the consequences of them are large, but yet we don't even talk about them.
Exactly.
Is that all these things don't just stay out foreign, right? And I think there was somebody that had said, a country focused on militaristic foreign policy leads to an erosion of liberties and freedom that come back to our own local societies.
Mhm.
We're spending so much of our money on the foreign policies, and they're militaristic in nature. The people that fight those wars end up coming back here. They end up being employed in whatever kind of sector. But imagine, like, they're learning skills about torture, they're learning skills about killing, like, and then you're going to employ them in the police force or in whatever avenue police. Those things don't just stay back there,
No.
right? These are learned things that come back here. And if you see the nature of things like torture, for example, like waterboarding, we think it's just happening in Guantanamo Bay, but the Chicago Police
Oh
Department
yeah.
used
Oh yeah.
waterboarding
Oh yeah.
on black people.
Oh yeah.
So they come back to haunt us here.
Oh yeah.
And anyway, so it's just
If we
that.
bring up Chicago police, we're gonna be here all day. We're gonna be here all day. So, man.
So again, that's to me. I'm just like, I don't know how you define. Uh, how do you define all of this into something that is like, I can't support it. I just can't. Once you really learn about the way our military is used, no matter how many good people are working in that, it just leaves me feeling so just uneasy, because it's not a tool for a society that claims it wants peace. To me, as Martin Luther King said, you can't just say you want peace and not sacrifice for it. Like, you have to love peace so much that you will sacrifice for it. So does that mean our sacrifice is just going to kill other people, and then more and more and more and more killing, and then what's the consequences of that?
Mhm.
You know?
No, I think about like I was watching uh just like this military video on YouTube, and they were talking about the guy was talking about his body armor. And he's like, oh, like with this new setup, I have the new body armor, the new Kevlar. He's like, it protects 41% of my body now. And then they showed how they even have like a special hardened area for the lung and for the heart, how it's like reinforced steel or whatever. And then I was like, okay, cool. And then I was just thinking, and then like on that video, it's all about how like the guy, he's a former soldier, and he's talking about how like he was on a mission, and he's like, the bravery that I've seen from my brothers, like they held me down, like under fire, crazy situations, like they displayed professionalism, they saved my life. I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for my brothers. And I was like, okay, blessed. Like that's all good. And I'm not even hating on this guy at all. Because he seems like a nice guy, whatever. But it's exactly that. It's like, here's this nice person that we put in this shitty situation. So he might be a nice guy and he might have good values, but it's like, why have we asked this person to do this thing in Afghanistan or Iraq or what have you, and put him in absurdly dangerous conditions? And so much so that 41% is considered good, as if a fireman's uniform could say, "Oh, it protects 41% of your body." You'd be like, "What the fuck?" You know what I mean? Excuse me, can you imagine the fireman being like, "Yeah, 41%. Let's send me into the battle." Like, no, that's crazy. Like, that's insane. Like,
Right.
But for this guy, yeah, his legs are completely exposed, no body armor on the face, no body armor on the neck. And we're just saying, like, go do the most ridiculous, dangerous things you can imagine. And like, we're not going to prepare you, we're not going to train you effectively, we won't give you the right resources. But then, like, if one of you rises to the occasion and like pulls some crazy impossible mission, we'll make a movie about it, we'll glorify you, we'll give you all the medals and the parade, like for PR. But in terms of actually helping soldiers with the tools they need for success in life, no, we're not going to give them that.
Right.
And like, I was just thinking, I was thinking about, I don't know if you've heard about this, but it's called a burn pit. And I don't know if the Canadian Army does it, but it's happened in the American Army, where when the soldiers are on patrol and they're not in their base, like, so that, let's say the base is in the city and then they go out 50 miles to go do some stuff or whatever. When they're out on patrol, everything that they use and everything that they carry and consume, they have to destroy it. They don't want to leave information lying around for the enemy, and they don't want to give the enemy extra tools or whatever, so they have to destroy all their stuff. So what they do, I don't know if they do this every night, but they would dig these massive pits, let's say 10 feet deep or 20 feet deep, and they would throw all of their, everything from the stuff from the porta potties and fecal matter, clothing, equipment, computers, electronics, everything, garbage, all total garbage. They throw it in this big pit and then they just burn it. They just light it on fire and burn it. And so in addition to the environmental damage and the fucking black soot and all the garbage that they spew into the air, the soldiers are right next to the burn pits, breathing in all this fucking garbage. No gas mask, no ventilation, no nothing. Just in their tent, whatever. And then they breathe in this, imagine burning rubber, burning plastic, burning fecal matter, burning organic substance, all of this stuff. And then the soldiers, obviously they're gonna get tar on their lungs, and they're gonna have skin, the black stuff under their fingernails, into their eye, everything. And no support. You know what I mean? Like, where's, like, why? And then it's like, and that's the messed up thing. We're gonna give that soldier a medal, we're gonna shake their hand, we're gonna parade them down Main Street for 4th of July, for Canada Day, for Veterans Day, what have you. But it's like, how about instead of the pomp and pageantry, why don't we just give them the stuff they need? And it's like, why have we taken these 50 guys, driven them 50 miles into the desert, and burned rubber and plastic right next to them? Like, why are you here? You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not mad at the individual soldier. He's just doing his thing, man. He's just trying to get by in life.